Behind these high razor wire walls lies a world unlike any other, where fear and power rule, and the line between inmate and king is blurred. This isn't just any prison, it's a fortress where the most dangerous mafia bosses live in luxury, controlling everything in plain sight. While most inmates struggle to survive, these crime lords thrive, running their empires from within. Welcome to San Pedro of Bolivia. St. Peter's Prison, better known as San Pedro Prison, stands in the poor city of La Paz in Bolivia. In a country where the citizens struggle to get by, the prisons are not any better, especially one run by prisoners. Although the blueprints for the prison were drawn up in 1850 after an architectural competition, it wasn't until 1895 that the country was able to build it due to lack of funds. When the prison was built, everything was normal, and it was like a normal prison. It was designed to hold about 250 inmates, but over time, this number increased past the limit, and the prison was no longer conducive as overcrowding became the order of the day. The government saw that they could no longer afford to keep the growing inmates in check. Hence, they implemented a regressive system that made inmates responsible for themselves. Though they advertised this movement as integrative and beneficial for the inmates, the real truth was right before the eyes of everyone. The government could no longer afford to spend so much money at a rehabilitation center. With this, a city was born within the confines of the prison, and the gang saw this as their time to not only come out of their hiding places, but also take full control of the prison. If you made it this far, how about you consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video? It really helps us out and allows us to keep bringing you high-quality content about the Mafia world. Thanks, we appreciate you. Security features. With the new system of inmates looking after inmates, San Pedro changed forever. Rather than hire civilian forces to serve as prison guards, San Pedro makes use of police instead, and rather than enter the prison to keep control, they lurk outside the 18-meter-high wall, as entry into the prison might very well mean they do not cherish their lives very much. Prisons in Latin America like San Pedro are often called depositos, or warehouses, because the guards are only focused on keeping the inmates inside and preventing riots. What happens within the prison walls? That's largely ignored. In spite of this condition, the prison still admits new prisoners on a daily basis. When new inmates come into the prison, they are processed and their mug shots are taken in the tiny space around the entrance that the police control. This is where the extent of their security and power ends. Afterwards, they hand the inmates over to the bosses of the prison. These are known as the delegados, aka lords of the prison, and these will take care of the further processing of the inmate from there forward. The person in charge of the prison is usually the head of a gang, and this man's words are absolute. The inmates are taken to the office of the delegados, which is an improvement from the tiny office the police occupy. The boss processes the new inmates by taking consideration of their sentence, crime, and funds. Under the control of the gangs, the prison is separated into 8 sections: Posta, Alamos, Prefectura, Pinos, San Martin, Palomar, Guende, and Cancha. Among these areas, Posta, Pinos, and Alamos are seen as the most upscale sections, almost like gated communities. Each one has a rating to indicate the quality of its housing. The higher-end sections even lock out non-residents around 9 p.m. to maintain security. On the flip side, the lower-end areas are home to many drug-addicted inmates and are known to be the most dangerous, especially at night when most stabbings happen. Each section functions like its own little village, complete with courtyards, restaurants, markets, and various services. In spite of being run by hardened criminals, the prison is still being ruled with intense regulations that must be followed with the risk of dire consequences. Living conditions. The prison might be run by prisoners, but new inmates who have ever served in other prisons in the past are still terrified to enter San Pedro because of the danger that lurks behind its high walls. When an inmate enters the prison, they have two options for securing a cell. Either buy one from the prison mayor, or governance agents work on commission and place ads in prison restaurants and on bulletin boards. When purchasing a cell, inmates are also required to pay a non-refundable fee of 20 to 25%. This fee covers things like community upkeep, administration, cleaning, renovations, and even occasional social events like Prisoners' Day, which is celebrated every September with barbecues and live music organized by section leaders. If a cell is available and the inmate can pay the entrance fee, most sections won't turn them away. However, in the pricier areas, inmates may need a current resident to vouch for them. Some representatives can even expel residents for things like smoking cocaine. Once a sale is agreed upon, the cell title is transferred to the new owner. The title includes details like the room number, location, a brief description, the name of the previous owner, and the sale price. The section leader oversees the transaction, ensuring both parties sign a purchase contract, which is then stamped with the section's official seal. A witness also signs to confirm the deal. For inmates who can't afford to buy a cell, there's an option to rent space from someone who owns multiple cells. In some sections, poorer inmates can even stay in small rooms in exchange for working for the section. After an inmate is placed in a specific quarter, it is quite impossible to switch. The wealthiest area of the prison, known as La Posta, offers inmates some serious perks: private bathrooms, kitchens, and even cable TV. Cells here go for about 1,500 to 1,800 Bolivianos. Wealthier inmates can even take it a step further, buying luxury cells with up to 3 floors and a hot tub. One inmate even had a second floor added to his cell, giving him a view of the city. But for most people inside the prison, living conditions are far from that level, as the intended 250 capacity has been stretched to over 3,000 inmates. Hence, it's common to see 5 people crammed into a single-room cell. Almost every section of the prison has its own market stalls and spots for playing games like billiards, poker, chess, and even video games. The canteens and restaurants are run by the inmates themselves, while other stalls sell ingredients for those who prefer to cook in their own kitchens. San Pedro takes the trophy of weirdness once more, as many of the visitors who come to visit their family members in prison end up staying there and not leaving. A number of the wives of the prisoners come to live with their husbands within the cell, and some even go as far as bringing their children with them, while other mothers who are sentenced to other prisons drop their children off without care to survive on their own with little interference from the fathers. Since the prison is a home to a lot of children, the gang in charge tries to take partial responsibility for them by making sure they do not get sexually harassed by the prisoners. Any prisoner who is caught harassing a child is immediately given the death sentence by drowning them in the very pool the children play in during the day. Preventing harassment is as far as the moral code of the delegatos extends. Under the watchful eyes of runners of the prison, almost 60% of the inmates are addicted to drugs. With the delegatos being in charge of the drug trade, the inmates have access to whatever drugs they might need. Whatever drug they want, it can absolutely be found within the prison walls. An all-time favorite of the prisoners is the pasta de cocaína, a crude byproduct of cocaine that is preferred because of the lower cost. The downside is that the drug suppresses hunger, so the inmates either die of an overdose or starve to death unknowingly. Daily activities. With the prison being run like a city, the prisoners have to be responsible for themselves, and this involves performing various tasks to be able to afford their rent and food. Those who own stalls and restaurants are more fortunate and are able to get by just fine. This also applies to skilled inmates, whose skills are very much needed in prison. Those prisoners who aren't very skilled are at the mercy of the delegatos. Hence, some of them take on jobs known as taxitas. These are men who look for inmates who would like to have messages delivered to visitors. They wear yellow jackets and they take their jobs pretty seriously, which means their survival. Meals and visits. The prison might now be in control of the prisoners, but the government still intervenes in terms of feeding the prisoners once a day. The meals served barely scratch the nutritional requirements needed, and the poorer prisoners have no choice but to gobble down whatever they are given. Barely full from what they are served, the prisoners who can't afford to eat at the prison's restaurants have to wait till they are visited by their family, who bring in food from the outside. And it is through this medium that all sorts of drugs are smuggled into the prison. The prison took it a step further by not just accepting visitors, but becoming a mini tourist attraction. Even though tours of San Pedro Prison are technically illegal, before 2009, many people could still get in by bribing the guards. The cost to enter was around $57 or 400 Bolivianos. After being searched by the guards, visitors were warned to make sure they left before 6 p.m. and were told not to take any pictures. Despite the risks and the legal gray area, the prison used to see around 50 tours happening every day. The Bolivian government overlooked this illegal tourism for years, but that changed in 2009. A video shot by a tourist inside the prison was uploaded to social media, which caught the attention of local TV networks, forcing the government to finally crack down and stop the tours. Still, the San Pedro Prison of Bolivia remains a dangerous territory where crime reigns supreme. For more dark stories of the underworld, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to never miss an update.